Coming up on The Race, the monster storm that's now turned into a political one.
Of course, the vice president, she's out someplace campaigning, looking for money.
Donald Trump visits hurricane-battered Georgia, slamming Kamala Harris and President Biden for what he says is too little, too late. Plus, two Midwesterners walk onto a debate stage. What happens next is anyone's guess. We're previewing the big VP showdown that gets underway tomorrow night. And we're just 36 days away from Election Day. Could AI still disrupt the process?
We are trying to put as much information out to the public so that they are informed.
The Race starts right now. Welcome to The Race. Monday night, I'm Chance Seals in Washington. Glad to have you here. 36 days out. Let's get to it. We begin with our race roundup tonight. And new polling that cannot be welcome news at Harris headquarters. The VP's lead over Donald Trump is shrinking in Wisconsin and Michigan, two states in that all-important Democratic blue wall that they really want to wrap up. The Times CNN survey has her up 1 point in Michigan, 2 in Wisconsin. The totals are within the margin of error, so essentially it is a dead heat there. Harris led by 4 points in both states as recently as last month. And another poll, this one from NBC Telemundo CNBC, shows Harris performing better than Trump among Latino voters, but her 14-point advantage is the smallest for any Democrat in the last 3 presidential election cycles. Meanwhile, Trump's attacks on Harris are growing more and more personal. At 2 rallies over the weekend, the 78-year-old Trump took aim at the cognitive fitness of an opponent 19 years his junior. He's getting blowback from Democrats, even some in his own party, after referring to Harris as, quote, mentally disabled.
Joe Biden became mentally impaired. Kamala was born that way. She was born that way. And if you think about it, only a mentally disabled person could have allowed this to happen to our country. Anybody would know this.
Among the Republicans criticizing Trump's remarks, you have South Carolina Senator Lindsey Graham and former Maryland Governor Larry Hogan, now a Senate candidate. Hogan said Trump had insulted not only Harris, but also people with actual disabilities. No response yet, though, from Kamala Harris to Trump's remarks. She spent her weekend out west. In Arizona on Friday, she went to the southern border, pledging to crack down on asylum claims and to beef up border security. Her weekend also included 2 star-studded fundraisers in California. Boy, were they lucrative. She brought in $55 million there. After that, she held a rally last night in Las Vegas, where she taunted Trump for refusing to debate her again.
But listen, also, their debate should not be the last word. I'm trying to debate Donald Trump again, and I think he should debate again. The American people have a right to hear us discuss the issues. And as you say here in Las Vegas, I'm all in. I'm all in. Even if my opponent is ready to fold. So there you go.
Harris also racked up 2 high-profile endorsements today from the media, opinion media, I should say. The New York Times editorial board calls the VP, quote, the only patriotic choice for president. That opinion piece is based in part on what the paper sees as Trump's fundamental character flaws, including a lack of wisdom, empathy, courage, and restraint. The Times, however, faulted Harris for not doing more to explain her vision and policies. And also backing Harris, as you see here, The New Yorker. The magazine views the VP as having the political skills to, quote, end a poisonous era defined by Donald Trump. We continue following the aftermath now of the deadly, devastating Hurricane Helene. The storm has closed roadways, cut off power for millions of Americans, claimed the lives of at least 120 people across 6 states. One of those affected states is battleground Georgia, where Donald Trump has taken his campaign today. The former president stopped in the southern city of Valdosta with truckloads of supplies and gasoline. While speaking to reporters, Trump slammed the federal government response so far and criticized Harris for spending her time fundraising for her campaign. Later, he announced plans to bring help to North Carolina as well, pledged his continued assistance, and said now is not a time to focus on politics.
As you know, our country is in the final weeks of a hard-fought national election. But in a time like this, when a crisis hits, when our fellow citizens cry out in need, none of that matters. We're not talking about politics now. We have to all get together and get this solved. We look out for one another. We pull together. We pitch in. We persevere, and we pull it through. That is really the American spirit. That's what made America originally great.
For her part, Vice President Kamala Harris wrapped her West Coast campaign plans early so that she could attend a FEMA briefing on the hurricane. And President Biden has pledged to support relief efforts in areas impacted by the storm. White House correspondent Haley Bull is here now with the latest. I mean, even before the storm arrived, he was kind of saying, we're going to be there. We have your back. When can we expect the president there?
Oh, President Biden this evening announcing that he will be on the ground in North Carolina on Wednesday with plans to eventually visit Georgia and Florida, as he's vowed, as you said, Chance, the federal government will be there, as he said, as long as it takes. And this evening, he received another briefing from the FEMA administrator as well as North Carolina's governor, the two of them together today on the ground surveying the damage. And in remarks this evening, the president offered his condolences to those impacted. And the White House has also said he's directed teams provide resources as fast as possible to communities and to continue to surge those resources. And it's a litany of resources. We know it includes assistance with thousands of federal personnel on the ground to help with things like search and rescue, debris removal, power restoration, with major disaster declarations approved in North Carolina, South Carolina, and Florida, as well as emergency declarations across that large swath of the Southeast impacted by this storm. But Chance, officials are also warning that the extent of the impact of this storm could take time to fully realize. The president saying today he does expect to have to ask Congress for supplemental funding, but the timing of that remains to be seen, whether he has to ask Congress to return. Now, the FEMA administrator noted just last week that continuing resolution that Congress approved Biden signed to fund the government for the next several months did not include their original supplemental request, but the authority for them to spend the money in the budget to get access to that a little bit quicker, but certainly an all-of-government approach, as they say right now at this hour.
Wow, okay, yeah. I mean, because we just talked about the politics out there right now, but, I mean, you look at these videos and you look at that map. This is not one city. It's not one state. It is a region right now. So, you know, again, the politics meeting policy, but right now people just need some help, it seems like. All right, Haley Bull, thank you. We appreciate it. All right, there is just one more day until the final scheduled debate for this election season. Ohio Senator J.D. Vance and Minnesota Governor Tim Walz face off in the VP debate tomorrow night, 9 p.m. Eastern. Deputy Political Director Joe St. George looks at what we can expect from the candidates.
We talk a lot about who's going to live in the White House for the next 4 years. We talk less about who's going to live here at the Naval Observatory in Washington, home of the official residence of the vice president. That conversation changes for a bit this week with Tuesday's vice presidential debate. But does a VP debate even matter? Senator J.D. Vance, Governor Tim Walz. After weeks of attacking each other on the campaign trail, both will meet Tuesday night in New York City. Just like the presidential debates this year, there will be no audience, and the vice presidential debate will last 90 minutes. CBS News' Nora O'Donnell and Margaret Brennan will moderate, and CBS reserves the right to turn off candidate microphones at any time. Secretary of Transportation Pete Buttigieg has been helping prep Governor Walz behind closed doors recently in Michigan. Republican Congressman Tom Emmer has been helping Senator Vance in Ohio by pretending to be Walz. Emmer is also from Minnesota.
Most people are going to vote based upon their preferences for the presidential candidates. But that doesn't mean that the vice presidential candidates won't matter.
Joel Goldstein is one of the nation's leading scholars on the vice presidency. He says VP debates still matter because people still watch. 57 million tuned into the vice presidential debate in 2020. In this case, he says Vance and Walz are still relatively unknown nationally, and both need to explain why they should be a heartbeat away from the presidency.
It still provides an introduction of the vice presidential candidates to the American people.
Unlike 2020, when Vice President Kamala Harris and former Vice President Mike Pence debated, the candidates won't be sitting at a table, they'll be standing, which Goldstein predicts will lead to more personal attacks.
And when they're seated, it tends to make it a little bit more difficult to be very aggressive.
What makes this year's debate more unique is there are no more scheduled debates between Trump and Harris, which means this may be one of the last major political events that an undecided voter pays attention to before they cast their ballot. Scripps News' political analyst Steve Schmidt looks for Walz to be especially aggressive.
Bare-knuckled brawl. And I think you can look for Walz to be extremely aggressive.
Joe St. George, Scripps News, Washington.
Hey, we'll see it soon enough. You can watch the VP debate right here on Scripps News. We're going to be simulcasting that event tomorrow, 9 p.m. Eastern, and also a special 2-hour edition of The Race at 6 p.m. leading up to it. I'm excited. Hope you are too. Head on The Race. We're digging deeper into the preparations and planning of the two VP candidates, what they're working through right now. How should they be prepping? What should they be avoiding? We'll ask the former special advisor for Mitt Romney's 2012 campaign next to help them prep for their debates.
They say the hardest part of getting something done is getting started. Well, we did that 30 years ago when California first took on the tobacco industry.
This is not just about access, it's about the message it sends.
Now, smoking is down 60%, lung cancer 42%. A couple of our cities have already ended tobacco sales. A California without big tobacco isn't just possible, it's already happening.
We carry the legacy of those who paved the way. We aren't just competitors.
Instead of just being a part of it, we are going to be a leader in the sport. We are looking forward to continuing to make history.
We are symbols of resilience and pride.
Only the best of the best survive.
A Bounce HBCU yearbook, a year-long salute to historically black colleges and universities.
3, 2, 1, go.
Why is America paying attention to the race? Because what takes place on both sides of the aisle here can be seen on both sides of these aisles.
The Race, weeknights at 6 on Scripps News. Watch with an antenna or on your favorite streaming app.
I'm a judge. I loved being on the bench. I want viewers to see that, to know what it's like to love being in a courtroom and to love watching what happens in a courtroom.
This is a case where I think you can believe either side based on the evidence being presented.
Here at Court TV, we can show you everything. And I hope at the end of the day, they've learned a little something about what it takes to try a case and why it's so important that it's done well.
You go get him, Tiger.
Oh, yeah.
I'm Marisa Giorgio, live from our studio in Missoula, Montana, and this is America Tonight.
Scripps News takes you ahead of the headlines.
We're reading between the lines there.
America Tonight on Scripps News. Find with an antenna or on your favorite streaming app.
I didn't hear anybody knock. Shall we proceed?
My car's the best shot in the whole world. Isn't it exciting?
They call you the rifleman. Just make it good.
What drew me to Court TV was this opportunity to combine the two things that I love. When I was in college, I studied television and radio, and then, of course, went to law school. And when I found out that Court TV was going to give me the opportunity to express myself and to share my love of the law, I was sold immediately.
The most important issue, innocence or guilt.
Started as a production assistant, then AP, and then went up the ranks, and really haven't looked back since.
Getting back now to our coverage and preview and analysis of tomorrow's vice presidential debate. It is the last major political event of this cycle and the only time J.D. Vance and Tim Walz will face off on the debate stage before Election Day. We told you what all the rules are. Now joining us to talk more about it is Executive Chair of the centrist Forward Party, Dr. Carrie Healy. She served as Lieutenant Governor of Massachusetts and as former special advisor for the 2012 Romney campaign. Healy left the Republican Party in 2021, joined the Forward Party in 2023. All right, thank you so much for being here. So you have taken part in presidential debate prep in the past. On a scale of 1 to 10, how much does a VP debate really matter?
Usually, I would agree that it's not that critical to the outcome of the race, although obviously it does have an impact on the careers of the people involved. But in this case, I really think it's different. I think that because there have been so few opportunities for the current configuration of candidates to engage, and that the American people really still are getting to know these candidates, I do think that the vice presidential race matters, and this debate in particular matters. And so I would argue that this is the last moment, as you were saying, that millions of undecided voters are going to be able to take a look at these candidates and form an opinion that is a unified opinion. Otherwise, people are going to be going on their social media and listening to little snippets here and there. But this is going to be something that forms a strong opinion.
So would you say that's like a 7 on a 10 scale?
I would actually say it's closer to a 9 on a 10 scale. And if I were advising Tim Walz at this moment, I would say that he needs to get out there and be presidential. I know that he is the person who is less likely to have to be stepping into those shoes, but I think that he needs to show himself off as a leader. He has to talk about his executive experience, something that Vance doesn't have. And at the same time, I think he needs to show that he's collaborative. He needs to be a person who's going to defend democracy. He has to build trust, and he has to be likable. And so I think the biggest danger for him right now is to be drawn into the anger and the debate and the hostility that's very likely to be coming out of J.D. Vance.
I wanted to ask you about likability. CBS News, they just released their poll about what people are watching for. They said, do you think the person's competent? Walz, 57%, J.D. Vance, 55%. And so, again, people earnestly wanting to learn more might be the case. As far as likability, voters, my sense is they like smart people. They bristle when politicians think they're smarter than voters. So J.D. Vance, sharp guy, sharp tongue, he admits. He's a Yale law grad. How should he handle Walz?
Yeah, I think both of them are very smart. And I think that, again, I think that J.D. Vance is going to probably fall prey to some problems because he's going to be looking to take on that mantle of the next leader of the Trump movement, not just to be vice president, but I think he also is looking to inherit that movement. And so he doesn't want any space between him and Trump, and he's going to be emulating some of the worst habits, I think, that we see in the Trump candidacy. So I think this is his challenge to, not trying to be the smartest guy in the room. He might try that, but I think it's more likely that he may try to be the most combative guy in the room.
All right. So then you have Walz. He's apparently telling people behind the scenes, according to Axios, he's nervous. He doesn't see himself as a good debater. I mean, I don't know if that's like this whole thing. Is he sandbagging?
I think he could be. I think he could be. And I also think that, he seems to enjoy debate. And you can tell that he really can relate to his constituents. He's going to be very down to earth. And I think that he's going to be looking into the camera and trying to connect with those Midwestern undecided voters that are going to be so critical to deciding this race.
Vance's wife, Usha, is reportedly involved in his debate prep. They met in law school. She has her own career, own mind, own views. I had never heard of a wife involved in this. Is that unusual? What do you think of it?
I think that is probably a perfectly good place for her to be. If that's helpful to Vance, if that's something that gives him confidence to have her there, perhaps she's been an advisor to him over time. I certainly know that Mitt Romney's wife, Ann, was always a very important person in all of his political endeavors. So I don't find that quite as unusual, perhaps, as some people might.
Okay. And then to Walz, and you kind of mentioned this, he has this, he can have this folksy presentation, kind of an all shucks thing, but then you see him roll out the weird line, and you see that he can really go for it. So you have the folksy thing, but then you have this very progressive track record as governor of Minnesota. What do Democrats want voters to see, I guess, when he steps on that stage, and how do they do that?
Yeah, again, I think he needs to project leadership and especially executive leadership. And they'll spar about the individual policies that he pursued as governor, but the fact is that he had the experience of leading a state, and that's going to give him an edge over Vance in this. He has a record, so he can be held to account for that record, but it's also very substantive, and I think that he'll be able to go deeper into the issues. In the last debate, there was very little discussion of actual issues, and I think that the Democrats would benefit from a deeper discussion of the economy, and Walz will be able to do that, and I think he's going to come off as very empathetic as he's discussing the plight of people right now in the country who are trying to make ends meet.
Okay, to wrap that all up, something very pithy. What is the golden rule of debates then?
Don't do any harm. Don't do something you can't walk back or that you'll be remembered forever for, because it simply isn't worth it.
All right, you heard her, gentlemen. Executive Chair of the Forward Party, Carrie Healy, thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Chance.
And on the race, it could soon be harder to finish your grocery run thanks to a looming strike by workers at dozens of ports around the country. We're taking a look at why they're probably striking and the impact it could have.
What drew me to Court TV was this opportunity to combine the two things that I love. When I was in college, I studied television and radio, and then, of course, went to law school. And when I found out that Court TV was going to give me the opportunity to express myself and to share my love of the law, I was sold immediately.
The most important issue, innocence or guilt.
Started as a production assistant, then AP, and then went up the ranks, and really haven't looked back since.
There's gonna be trouble.
Are you silver?
Let's have it. Scared? You the law?
Well, that's right.
I'll find you, and I'll kill you.
Now all I need is a fresh horse, a saddle, and a gun.
Why is America paying attention to the race? Because what takes place on both sides of the aisle here can be seen on both sides of these aisles.
The Race, weeknights at 6 on Scripps News. Watch with an antenna or on your favorite streaming app.
Ion is on with 3 networks to enjoy.
Yeah, it's on.
Yes, showtime.
You're going to want to see this.
It's on.
Ion, Ion Plus, and Ion Mystery.
Wow!
It's on.
Give me something new. I want the real you.
That is the best idea I've ever heard.
Yes, of course we can get you more.
Rex, go!
Angus MacGyver.
You know that was fun.
Just give me more.
1, 2, 3, hold on! I am proud to be able to be on the first ever HBCU gymnastics team. This is how we'll do it! To be able to show off my talents at a HBCU is very honoring.
8 hours of back-to-back true crime cases every Saturday.
This is crazy.
On America's original true crime obsession. 48 hours on Court TV. Saturday starting at 4/3 Central on Court TV.
Tuesday night, Scripps News has all the debate coverage you need. The special America Tonight, then the simulcast of the CBS News vice presidential debate, and a special Path to the White House. It's all Tuesday night.
You go get him, Tiger.
Oh, yeah.
Studies show that having lots of books at home is one of the best ways to help a child succeed in school and beyond.
That's why the Scripps Howard Fund started the If You Give a Child a Book campaign.
So please, if you could give a child a book today,
we would be so grateful.
When scientists want to know if a treatment is effective, they test the participants with something that they don't know if they're getting a placebo or the real thing. So the folks at Harris Polling just did something very similar with voters for The Guardian. They gave participants 12 economic policies, 6 from Trump's campaign, 6 from Harris's, but they did not say who they belonged to. It was a blind study. 4 out of the 5 most popular policies were Kamala Harris's, including a ban on price gouging when it comes to food and groceries. While both campaigns are trying to bring down costs to consumers, there is an issue that could throw a wrench into their plans, a potential strike by tens of thousands of dock workers. If they strike tomorrow, it could halt shipments at major U.S. ports, upending the economy. National correspondent Jamal Andrews has more on the widespread impact it could have.
45,000 dock workers are set to walk off the job tomorrow in a labor strike that will impact 36 ports up and down the East and Gulf Coast, from Maine to Houston, Texas. All of this comes as inflation is finally starting to cool and the presidential election is just weeks away. Tens of thousands of dock workers are set to walk off the job Tuesday, threatening to shut down 36 U.S. ports from Maine to Texas.
This would be an economic tsunami if the strike, were to go on for several weeks or several months.
The International Longshoremen's Association has been in a standoff over wages and benefits for months with the United States Maritime Alliance, which represents the port terminals. The union is requesting a new labor contract with higher wages along with a ban of automated machinery at the ports, which handle about half of the country's cargo from ships. This would be the first strike by the Longshoremen's Union since 1977. The walkout could stop the flow of goods, including parts needed to keep U.S. factories functioning. This could disrupt supply chains and lead to an increase in retail prices as we head into the holiday shopping season. It would also cost the economy billions of dollars a day, just 5 weeks before the presidential election.
The estimate right now is around $5 billion a day. I think there will be insurmountable pressure on the Biden administration to get involved once we move into week 2, possibly, of a potential strike.
Many businesses placed orders early in preparation for the strike, but some containers could be stranded at sea by Tuesday. And some worry that even if the strike is short, it could take weeks to get through the backlog. Jamal Andrews, Scripps News.
For the audience leaving us now, your local programming is next, but remember, you can stick with us, scripsnews.com/TV. If you are staying there with the race, a lot more headed your way tonight, including a not guilty plea from the man accused of trying to kill Donald Trump at his golf course, what we learned at his arraignment earlier today. Plus, the political storm after the massive hurricane. Many people are calling for more action from the White House and presidential hopefuls in the wake of Hurricane Helene. But what exactly is their role, and what can they do to help? The former FEMA administrator is with us right after this break on The Race.
You go get him, Tiger.
Oh, yeah.
We carry the legacy of those who paved the way. We aren't just competitors.
Instead of just being a part of it, we are going to be a leader in the sport. We are looking forward to continuing to make history.
We are symbols of resilience and pride.
Only the best of the best survive.
A Bounce HBCU yearbook, a year-long salute to historically black colleges and universities.
3, 2, 1, go.
Give me something new. I want the real you.
That is the best idea I've ever heard.
Yes, of course we can get you more. Rex, go!
Angus MacGyver.
You know that was fun.
Just give me more.
Why is America paying attention to the race? Because what takes place on both sides of the aisle here can be seen on both sides of these aisles.
The Race, weeknights at 6 on Scripps News. Watch with an antenna or on your favorite streaming app.
I'm Maritza Giorgio, live from our studio in Missoula, Montana, and this is America Tonight.
Scripps News takes you ahead of the headlines.
We're reading between the lines there.
America Tonight on Scripps News. Find with an antenna or on your favorite streaming app.
You budget. You pay bills.
Yet somehow, women like you, like me,
are 80% more likely than men to live in poverty in retirement.
So here's what we're going to do now. We're going to save ourselves by setting a goal to save 2% more of our income for our retirement. Why 2?
1% honors you.
And 1% honors all womankind.
So come on, learn more about the 2% challenge at WeSaySaveIt.org.
His identity, a mystery.
Who is he?
His sword,
lightning fast.
I challenge you!
His name,
Zorro! Zorro!
Zorro. Tuesdays starting 5/4 Central on Grid Extra.
Tuesday night, Scripps News has all the debate coverage you need. The special America Tonight, then the simulcast of the CBS News vice presidential debate, and a special path to the White House. It's all Tuesday night.
Welcome to The Race on Scripps News. I'm Chance Seals in Washington. The man accused of attempting to assassinate Donald Trump at his Florida golf course earlier this month made a court appearance today, pleading not guilty to 5 counts, including attempted assassination of a presidential candidate. National political correspondent Alex Miller joins us live now from New York. So, Alex, what happened at the arraignment?
Well, it took place at a West Palm Beach federal courthouse earlier this morning. It lasted all of 5 minutes. Remember, these arraignments are typically very quick, but 5 minutes, it's pretty fast. And so he came in shackled in a full khaki jumpsuit. He did not answer when the judge asked how he pleaded. His attorneys had to respond for him, saying that he pleaded not guilty. They did ask for a jury trial, and he waved, according to the Associated Press, to reporters when he went in and out of the room. Now, he has 3 new charges. I want to go through them with you, but there are 5 charges in total. So let's talk about the new ones that have to do with today. First, they have to do with attempted assassination of a major presidential candidate, possessing a firearm in furtherance of a crime, and assaulting a federal officer. These are the new charges. He had been previously charged 2 other times in relation to this incident, charged with a firearm possession as a convicted felon and possession of a firearm with an obliterated serial number. Remember, all of this taking place at Mar-a-Lago. He apparently had a list of venues and dates for the former president, and prosecutors say that he went to Mar-a-Lago multiple times to scope all of this out.
Wow. So what's next for Ruth?
Well, he's being held without bail right now, and prosecutors said that there is a good chance that they might bring other charges. So it's something that we definitely need to be paying attention to. The assassination of a presidential candidate can carry the maximum of life in prison. Now, it's interesting. This case is going to be heard by Judge Eileen Cannon. She's the one who just threw out the documents case in Florida, someone that the former president has spoken very highly of. Their case is going through the litigation system right now because she threw it out. The special counsel's office is now appealing it. So she's going to get another Trump-related case whenever this decides to go to trial.
Alex Miller, live in New York. Thank you for the update. Another update for you tonight. The aftermath of Hurricane Helene continues to unfold across the Southeast. Many states involved, at least 121 people across 6 states are confirmed dead, and that number is expected to go up. Western North Carolina is one of the hardest hit areas. The loss of homes and property, look at this, is widespread. Hundreds of roads are closed. Rescue teams continue to search for missing people. Officials say this is the worst flooding event North Carolina has seen in a century. Tonight, I'm joined by former FEMA Administrator Craig Fugate. He also served as Governor Jeb Bush's Emergency Management Director in Florida. Mr. Fugate, thank you for being here. The devastation is deep. It is wide when you look at the map. What is the job of FEMA in this moment?
Well, the job of FEMA is supporting the governors. I think, a lot of people want to know why isn't FEMA leading this? Our disasters are led by governors. When I worked for Governor Jeb Bush, he led the response. FEMA supported us. And so FEMA's been working to get supplies in to support the states. A lot of the what we call urban search and rescue teams that have water rescue capabilities, the National Guard sending units in, but other federal agencies like the Coast Guard. So FEMA's job really is to coordinate, not get in front of the states in this initial response phase, and then begin preparing for what recovery is going to take to get these communities back up.
I see. Okay, and I'm not going to ask you these questions to pin blame, but really to answer questions of people right now who are saying, who's in charge of what? Because in some areas, there's no water, there's no food, power, no diapers. And, you know, this is not the epicenter. These are the outlying areas. So who should be jumping in?
Well, the response is local, backed by the state and federal government. And it's really one team. And in many cases, it's just the inability to drive resources in because of the road networks. And so if you take like North Carolina, they're flying supplies by helicopter, but they can only fly certain supplies. And so they're prioritizing life safety and life saving. And the other things will be getting there. But this is why it's so important that people understand that in disasters, it's really, you know, up to those first couple of days, neighbor helping neighbor, having your supplies and being ready to go. And unfortunately, with the devastation of the road networks, it's slowing down this response. If you go down into other parts of the areas that have been hit where the roads weren't destroyed, response has been going much faster. So this is, again, one of these situations where, you know, people are saying, where's help, where it's coming from? It's coming, but in each state, it's being led by the governor. And FEMA's in a support role to those governors.
I noticed you said the teams are called, I think you said urban response or something like that, but my understanding is in some areas, the hardest hit right now, it's in Appalachia. I mean, some of these places are sparsely populated. It's hard to get to on a road on a good day, and now you have this. How does that complicate matters?
Well, you can't drive to these places. You're going to have to work your way in either by going in by helicopter or going in by foot or using, you know, four-wheel drive vehicles to get in. And we call them urban search and rescue teams, but these are highly specialized trained teams that have self-contained equipment, including boats that are trained to go into these types of areas, not just in the cities. In fact, they probably get deployed more in hurricanes to do this type of rescue work. So they're very experienced, very well trained, and they are not the only ones out there. A lot of the local and state teams are out there, as well as volunteer groups. So this is really the effort. In many cases, people are just cut off with no communication. So reaching those folks, getting in there and making sure that you know, communication is reestablished. But they're still going to be looking for survivors, and unfortunately, in many cases, what will most likely be recovery operations in those areas that were hit in these flash floods.
Mr. Fugate, you were also FEMA administrator, so you understand that this is one, of course, disaster response, but also politics always enters the equation, it seems. And Donald Trump says President Biden is asleep at the wheel, or on the beach, I think he said. Listen to this.
If the federal government is not being responsive, but they're having a very hard time getting the president on the phone. He won't get on, and of course the vice president, she's out someplace campaigning, looking for money.
I want to mention that the vice president was at, I think, the FEMA headquarters getting a briefing. Also, President Biden said tonight, within the last few minutes, Trump is lying. He knows he's lying because I talked directly to Governor Kemp, and Trump was told that. So just cards on the table. But should a president be on the ground, let's say 3 days out, should he be there at this moment?
No. Again, the president is doing their job by making sure FEMA has the resources and that they're providing the declarations for the financial assistance the governors requested. They're talking to governors, making sure that what FEMA is doing is what the governors need and what the gaps could be. And showing up in a disaster area, again, where the former president was in an area that was hit, but not devastated like you have up in Asheville. And I worked for President Obama. One of his main concerns when coming to a disaster area, and he communicated this very clearly to me, he did not want to arrive and disrupt response operations. You know, he didn't want to not get there, and there was always this urgency to get there as soon as possible, but he was very clear. Do not have me come in if it's going to disrupt the response. And think about what it takes to support the president to come into an area, to be able to get on the ground and meet local officials and see the disaster and what that would take away from response operations. So that's why that I think the tendency that people think the president should be there the day after or the next day after, it's really when do you get stable enough where that trip where the president can come in and serve that role as controller-in-chief is not taking away from the response to the people that are still in urgent need of assistance.
Yeah, sometimes the optics and wisdom of getting there quickly are in intention. Real quick, I wanted to end by asking you, it seems like the number and intensity of natural disasters has climbed in recent years, not to mention the cost. Is the government, are they sufficiently prepared and funded?
No, Congress has yet to pass a budget. We're under a continuing resolution. The administration had already asked for supplemental funding for FEMA for other disasters that had already occurred. And now you're putting this on top of it. And it's not going to just be FEMA. There's going to be a lot of different federal agencies, from Department of Transportation to HUD, USDA, that are going to need more funding to deal with this disaster. So right now, they're already in a deficit. They're going to need more funding for this. And I think this is something that Congress needs to come back and look at, making sure that FEMA is funded at a level that allows for what many people have always assumed was a fairly stable level of disasters, which right now is much greater than what they're being budgeted for.
Right. Okay. Former FEMA Administrator Craig Fugate. Sir, thank you.
Thanks for having me.
Ahead on the race, AI is growing more present in our lives every day, and now politicians are working quickly to address the fast-evolving platform. But some warn it might be out of our grasp already. Hear from a top White House artificial advisor about what they are doing now to address the technology. Next.
His identity, a mystery.
Who is he?
His sword, lightning fast.
I challenge you!
His name,
Zorro! Zorro!
Zorro. Tuesdays starting 5/4 Central on Grid Extra.
I'm a judge. I loved being on the bench. I want viewers to see that, to know what it's like to love being in a courtroom and to love watching what happens in a courtroom.
This is a case where I think you can believe either side based on the evidence being presented.
Here at Court TV, we can show you everything. And I hope at the end of the day, they've learned a little something about what it takes to try a case and why it's so important that it's done well.
You got us banned from being room parents? I have never been more in love with you.
Who wants to go nuts for donuts?
Show him your folding trick.
I'm not in the mood for your sheet right now.
That's gotta hurt, huh?
You keep me coming back for more.
Why is America paying attention to the race? Because what takes place on both sides of the aisle here can be seen on both sides of these aisles.
The Race, weeknights at 6 on Scripps News. Watch with an antenna or on your favorite streaming app.
Tuesday night, Scripps News has all the debate coverage you need. The special America Tonight, then the simulcast of the CBS News vice presidential debate, and a special path to the White House. It's all Tuesday night.
8 hours of back-to-back true crime cases every Saturday.
This is crazy.
On America's original true crime obsession. 48 hours on Court TV. Saturdays starting at 4/3 Central on Court TV.
I'm Marisa Giorgio, live from our studio in Missoula, Montana, and this is America Tonight.
Scripps News takes you ahead of the headlines.
We're reading between the lines there.
America Tonight on Scripps News. Find with an antenna or on your favorite streaming app.
1, 2, 3, hold out! I am proud to be able to be on the first ever HBCU gymnastics team. This is how we'll do it! To be able to show off my talents at a HBCU is very honoring.
What drew me to Court TV was this opportunity to combine the two things that I love. When I was in college, I studied television and radio, and then, of course, went to law school. And when I found out that Court TV was going to give me the opportunity to express myself and to share my love of the law, I was sold immediately. The most important issue, innocence or guilt. Started as a production assistant, then AP, and then went up the ranks, and really haven't looked back since.
A judge in Georgia struck down the state's abortion law, which effectively prohibited abortions beyond 6 weeks of pregnancy. The judge's order said in part that liberty in Georgia includes, quote, the power of a woman to control her own body, end quote. The law will now return to what it was before new restrictions passed in 2019. Artificial intelligence, AI, is hyper-intelligent toothpaste shooting out of a tube. No going back, it's out. But can the evolution be harnessed with regulations, let's say? Folks at the highest levels of our government are keeping an eye on the revolution and on the bad actors out there that could be trying to influence everything from elections to maybe even war. Lead disinformation desk correspondent Liz Landers joins us now. She picked the brain of a top advisor at the White House on artificial intelligence. Liz, pray tell, because a lot of us are thinking, you know, all right, they always say we're going to do something, we're going to get in front of it, and then technology is off to the races. So what are they doing?
Right. So the president has an entire advisor who just handles AI, and I had the opportunity to sit down and speak with Ben Buchanan, who's the special advisor on artificial intelligence at the White House. We talked about their executive order and all the different ways that AI can impact disinformation and even warfare. How are you thinking about AI risks? Are you more focused on long-term risks like killer robots that may be developed, or are you more concerned about short-term risks like housing opportunities that are affected by an AI algorithm?
AI policy is like a decathlon. There's a lot of different events, and the United States can't skip any of them. We have to compete, we have to excel across the board.
Who is the U.S. most directly competing with on this issue?
I think in national security across the board, our deepest competition is with China, and that's true in AI as well. It doesn't mean we're not willing to have conversations with China that are collaborative on AI.
The intelligence community recently warned that Russia, China, and Iran are using artificial intelligence increasingly to try to impact this upcoming election here in the United States. How do you see AI's impact on the election? Do you think it could sway the outcome of November?
I think the intelligence community speaks for itself in what they have said there. But in general, this, I think, reaffirms why we are talking about the importance of labeling AI content, labeling non-AI content in cases where that's appropriate. And like, so will this sway the election? I doubt it, but we are trying to put as much information out to the public so that they are informed.
What are the challenges that this administration faces when it comes to disinformation generated by AI?
There's a broader disinformation conversation, and this is one part of it. But I think what can AI do in a disinformation context? It can make things appear maybe more real than they are with deep fakes and the like. And this is why we push so hard on watermarking and transparency, because that, I think, is the best way to mitigate that risk. And the core principle here is Americans should know when they're seeing a video that's generated by an AI system. And we need to build out a technical ecosystem that enables that in a seamless way for Americans.
Nothing is certain about how AI will evolve or how it will be deployed. No one knows all the answers.
The president said in a speech at the UN recently that, quote, artificial intelligence is going to change our ways of life, our ways of work, and our ways of war. What does he mean by that last part?
I think there's no doubt that AI offers the potential for a lot of capability in the military and intelligence context. And the executive order tasks the development of a national security memorandum, basically guidance to the Department of Defense and the intelligence community about how to use this technology, the first ever document of this kind for AI. And that document is not out yet, but when it is out, that document will give very clear guidance about how AI changes the Department of Defense's strategy, and crucially how it doesn't. And there are some things that are really important that retain within human control, that we use AI in a way that aligns with our values.
So you think that AI can be used responsibly in warfare?
Yes, and we actually have already outlined a lot of this. It's something called the Political Declaration for the use of AI and autonomy in military systems. And it's not just us. 56 nations have signed this document, which we put out, which kind of walks through the core principles of how do we use AI in our systems. And it's worth saying the notion of automation in warfare is not
totally
unique to this current moment. Like we have had this for decades.
How does President Biden approach artificial intelligence? How often are you briefing him about this? What are the questions he's asking you?
what really strikes me is he focuses on the technology's effect on people. And people like me love the technology, are interested in the technology for its own sake. I think that's great. I think he thinks that's great. But he wants to know, what does it mean for workers? What does it mean for consumers? What does it mean for ordinary American families? And I think that is kind of the through line in every conversation I've had with him, is taking the technical reality as it moves very quickly and then applying it to the kind of things that he thinks about as president.
Now, one of the most immediate actions in that executive order was to hire up AI experts within the federal workforce. Now, Buchanan told us that they've already hired several hundred people, many of whom have never worked in the federal government before. And there is even a brand new institute that's been set up within the Department of Commerce that handles just AI safety and security. So the federal government itself is really trying to lean into AI experts and using AI when it's appropriate.
And you have to lure in top talent.
Exactly.
Because otherwise private industry outpaces you.
Yes.
Okay, and also, you think about energy. When you do a query on AI, my understanding is it consumes a lot more than if you go on Google.
Yes.
Yeah.
ChatGPT on your phone takes up energy. The problem that we've seen is that these large AI systems and models use a lot of energy. There's actually an estimate from the University of Massachusetts and Amherst that says that training a large AI model consumes as much energy as it takes to power 100 homes for a year. That's a lot. Ooh. From the federal government perspective, what Buchanan was saying to us is he does understand and is very clear-eyed about the fact that the energy grid in this country is going to have to be able to withstand all the AI uses that we're going to be using. He said he sees that increasing in the next few years, but they are optimistic that there are solar, wind, potentially nuclear fuel, so reusable sources of energy that can fuel this interest and explosion in AI.
I think Microsoft just made a deal to bring a nuke site back online for like 20 years. So, okay, very cool. Liz Landers, as always, interesting stuff. Thank you. Head on the race, a roundup of the top stories we're watching tomorrow.
There's a better way to begin your mornings.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Morning Rush. Thanks so much for being with us.
Context and conversation.
This next story, we were talking about this earlier today.
Get the stories that will shape each day.
Here with us now is meteorologist Scott Withers. We got just wave after wave after wave.
So you can get on with yours.
So make sure you stay with us as we keep an eye on this developing story for you.
Morning Rush. Weekday mornings starting at 7, 6 Central. Only on Scripps News.
No young.
I didn't hear anybody knock. Shall we proceed?
My car's the best shot in the whole world. Isn't it exciting?
They call you the rifleman.
Just make it good.
Saturday night. First you moved in, you banned cigar smoke and kitchen nudity.
Oscar Madison.
Just doing my daily yoga.
Felix Unger.
You're not exactly a guy's guy.
Why? Because I use coasters? I'm an accomplished photographer. Perfect, let's start shooting. And I can make a pair of tap shoes talk. What do you say, boys?
Together, they're the odd couple.
Here, hold that.
Oscar, is that coffee? I just cleaned the rug.
Better not move.
The Odd Couple. Saturday starting 7, 6 Central on Laugh More.
You go get him, Tiger.
Oh, yeah.
Why is America paying attention to the race?
Because what happens in this town happens to your town too.
Here on the steps of the U.S. Capitol after a historic...
The decisions made in this house are felt in the heart of yours.
Every night on the race, we take you to the people, the policies, and the political points of impact.
We want to add some context around it tonight.
The Race. Weeknights at 6, 5 Central on Scripps News. Watch with an antenna or on your favorite streaming app.
It's really important for Scripps News reporters to live where they are reporting.
You're going to talk to people from all different backgrounds.
We do stories with people regardless of the political persuasions.
We're coming here as people, as your neighbors.
We know best what's happening in our communities.
And that's why I wake up every morning, is I hope I can deliver folks information so they can make an educated decision. I'm Forrest Saunders,
Ben Brown,
Jake Burns,
Rachel Louise Just,
Alex Miller, Scripps News.
Watch Scripps News, find with an antenna or on your favorite streaming app.
We carried the legacy of those who paved the way. We aren't just competitors.
Instead of just being a part of it, we are going to be a leader in the sport. We are looking forward to continuing to make history.
We are symbols of resilience and pride.
Only the best of the best survive.
A Bounce HBCU yearbook, a year-long salute to historically black colleges and universities.
3, 2, 1, go.
Did you watch? SNL kicked off its historic 50th season with a star-studded cast. Of course, the cold open was all politics. Maya Rudolph reprising her role as Kamala Harris. James Austin Johnson returned as Donald Trump.
I am so happy to be campaigning in whatever swing state I'm in, which I will just refer to as Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, Georgia.
Where the hell is everyone going? Where are you going?
The rest of the sketch included comedian Jim Gaffigan as Tim Walz, Agnes Hamburg back as Harris's husband, Doug Imhoff, and Dana Carvey as President Biden. That one was devastating. Bowen Yang appeared as Trump's running mate, J.D. Vance, and Gene Smart hosted the premiere. Former President Jimmy Carter marks his 100th birthday tomorrow, and the nation's oldest sitting president is saluting our longest living president.
Mr. President, you've always been a moral force for our nation and the world. I recognized that as a young senator. That's why I supported you so early. You're a voice of courage, conviction, compassion. Most of all, beloved friend Jill, me, and our family.
Did you know Biden was a 34-year-old first-term senator in 1976 when he became the first elected official outside Georgia to endorse Carter's long-shot presidential bid? In the birthday message, Biden described Carter as one of the most influential statesmen in U.S. history, adding, quote, "Mr. President, I admire you so darn much." Before we go tonight, I'll look at some of the stories we're going to be following tomorrow, including J.D. Vance and Tim Walz facing off for the VP debate in New York. 90 minutes, no audience. They have hot mics throughout, not muted. You can watch it right here on Scripps News simulcast. The event starts 9 p.m. Eastern. We have a special 2-hour edition of The Race at 6 p.m. leading up to it. Donald Trump heading back to Wisconsin after a stop in the battleground state on Saturday. He'll speak at one event at 2:30, then head on to Milwaukee for a speech at 6. It's going to be a 7th stop in the state this campaign. And second gentleman Doug Imhoff also going to be in Wisconsin at a campaign event also in Milwaukee. He plans to focus on economic policies. Harris's team has also several stops in the battleground state, including the official launch of her run for the White House. Time is winding down this Monday edition of The Race, and we want to end it with our photo finish. As always, President Biden welcomed American athletes from the Olympics and Paralympics to the White House to honor their accomplishments in the Paris Games this summer. He joked his staff had the games on during national security briefings before adding that he had the TV on in the Oval Office as well, so he was also a big fan and watching. Awesome selfies. All right, quick check of the calendar. There are now 36 days left until this election. That'll do it for this edition of The Race. Thank you for watching this Monday evening. I'm Chance Seals in Washington. For the audience leaving us now, your local programming is next. But remember, check us out, scripsnews.com/TV. We hope you stay right there because the debrief is back after a very short break.